I'm Emily, 32, sitting in a chilly lawyer's office, my heart thumping like a drum. My sister Charlotte smirks across the table, her eyes gleaming. Our parents' will is being read, and I'm expecting fairness, maybe love. Instead, the lawyer hands Charlotte a 10 million check. My inheritance. A note. Go earn your own. It's a slap, raw and cold. Why did they choose her over me? I grip Grandpa's old locket, my only anchor. Then a sealed envelope from him catches my eye. What's inside? Have you ever been blindsided by family? Stay with me to find out what changed everything. Drop a like, subscribe, and tell me where you're watching from. I grip the steering wheel. My knuckles pale as I drove away from the lawyer's office. The city blurred past all gray concrete and honking horns, but my mind was stuck on Charlotte's smirk. That $10 million check in her manicured hands. The note in my lap, its words like a bruise, go earn your own. My chest felt tight, like I couldn't get enough air. I'd spent years being the good daughter, the one who stayed, who cared. And this was my reward. My apartment was a cramped one-bedroom, the kind where the radiator clanks all night. I dropped my keys on the counter, the jangle too loud in the quiet. The place smelled faintly of last night's takeout, and a stack of unpaid bills glared from the table. I sank onto the couch, still in my coat, and pulled out my phone. My thumb hovered over Charlotte's number. I wanted to call to demand why she got everything, but my hands shook too much. Instead, I dialed Hannah. She picked up on the second ring. "Em, you okay? How'd the will reading go?" Her voice was warm like always, but I could hear the clatter of her hospital shift in the background. I swallowed my throat dry. They gave Charlotte 10 million. 10 million. And me. A note telling me to figure it out myself. Saying it out loud made it real, and my voice cracked. What Hannah's tone sharpened the noise behind her fading. That's insane. You were there for them, Em. Every hospital visit, every late-night call. What were they thinking? I don't know. I leaned back, staring at the ceiling's water stain. I keep replaying it. Charlotte didn't even flinch. She just sat there like she knew it was coming. Hannah snorted. Of course she did. She's been their princess forever. Remember when your mom paid for her Paris trip while you were working doubles? I winced. That memory stung. I'd been 22 scrubbing floors at the hospital to help Dad's failing hardware store. Meanwhile, Charlotte was posting photos from the Louvre mom's credit card covering every cafe and boutique. I'd told myself it was fine that family meant sacrifice. But now, it felt like I'd been played. Em, you need to talk to her, Hannah said. Get some answers. This isn't right. I don't even know what to say. I rubbed my eyes, exhaustion settling in. What if she laughs in my face? Then you know who she really is, Hannah said firm. But you deserve to know why. You've been carrying them all this time. I nodded, though she couldn't see me. She was right, but the thought of facing Charlotte made my stomach twist. I hung up, promising to think about it, and tossed the phone aside. My gaze landed on a framed photo on the shelf, half hidden by a dying plant. Me and Mom 5 years ago at her chemo appointment. I'd driven her, held her hand through the nausea. Charlotte had been too busy with some gala. I stood and picked up the frame, my thumb brushing the glass. Mom's smile was weak but real. I'd thought we were close, that she saw me. But then I remembered something else. A letter I'd found after she passed, tucked in her nightstand. I'd been cleaning out her room, sorting through scarves and pill bottles when I saw it. Her handwriting elegant, even in sickness, addressed to Charlotte. I set the photo down and rummaged through a drawer, my hands trembling. I knew I'd kept it, unable to throw it away. There it was, folded and creased. I unfolded it, the paper soft from time. My darling Charlotte, it began. You have such potential, such light. I know you'll make us proud. It went on, praising her ambition, her charm. Not a word about me. Not a mention of the nights I'd stayed up making sure Mom ate, or the days I'd missed work to drive her to appointments. I sank back onto the couch, the letter in my lap. My eyes burned, but I didn't cry. It wasn't sadness now, it was something sharper, like a blade twisting in my gut. Had Mom ever seen me? Or was I just the one who showed up, the one they could count on to take the weight Charlotte's potential got her millions? My reliability got me nothing. I glanced at the bills again. Rent was due and my car needed repairs. I worked as a receptionist at a dental office, barely scraping by. Charlotte was probably sipping champagne right now, planning her next vacation. The unfairness of it choked me. I wanted to scream, to throw something, but all I could do was sit there, the letter crumpling in my fist. My phone buzzed, snapping me out of it. A text from Hannah. "You got this, Em. Call her. You're stronger than you think." I stared at the words, my heart racing. Maybe she was right. Maybe I needed to hear Charlotte say it, why she deserved everything, why I deserved nothing. But as I reached for the phone, a new fear crept in. What if her answer broke me even more? I set the phone down. Hannah's text still glowing on the screen. My hands were clammy, and the apartment's dim light felt suffocating. I couldn't call Charlotte yet. The thought of her voice, smug and careless, made my stomach churn. Instead, I paced the tiny living room, my socks catching on the worn carpet. The letter from Mom lay crumpled on the couch, its words branding my heart. Potential. Light. Charlotte. I needed to understand why I was invisible to them. I grabbed my coat and headed out, the night air sharp against my face. The corner store's neon sign buzzed as I slipped inside, grabbing a coffee I didn't need. The clerk, an older guy named Ray, nodded at me. "Rough day, Emily?" he asked, his voice gruff but kind. "You could say that," I muttered, handing him a crumpled dollar. He didn't push, just gave me my change. I liked that about Ray. He saw me without prying. Back outside, I sipped the bitter coffee, leaning against my car. My mind drifted to Dad, not Mom this time. He'd always been the quiet one, hunched over his store's ledgers, stress carving lines into his face. I'd worked there weekends as a teen, ringing up nails and paint cans, hoping he'd notice me. But his rare smiles were for Charlotte when she'd breeze in all charm and no effort. "You're going places, kid," he'd say, ruffling her hair. I got a nod, maybe a thanks for helping. I thought it was enough back then. I climbed into my car, the engine sputtering before it caught. My phone buzzed again, this time a notification. Charlotte had posted online a photo of her at some rooftop bar, all glitz and sequins. The caption read, "Living my best life. Grateful." My grip tightened on the wheel. Grateful for what? The money she didn't earn, the parents who chose her. I slammed the phone face down on the passenger seat, my breath ragged. When I got home, I couldn't sit still. I dug through a box under my bed, one I hadn't touched in years. Old photos, birthday cards, a scarf Mom knitted. Then I found it, a program from a gala one Mom insisted on funding for Charlotte's networking. I'd been 24, working overtime to cover Dad's debts. That night I'd come home to find Mom beaming over Charlotte's photos, all elegance and champagne flutes. "She's shining out there," Mom had said, not looking at me. I'd nodded, swallowing the ache, and gone to bed. Now holding that program, the ache turned to fire. I flipped through it, my hands shaking. Charlotte's name was everywhere, listed as a rising star. I wasn't even mentioned, not as a daughter, not as anything. I tossed it aside and pulled out another relic, a notebook from my college days. I'd started a business degree, dreaming of my own shop someday, maybe books or crafts. But Mom got sick, and I dropped out to be there. Charlotte. She was too fragile to handle it, Mom said. So I carried it all. I sat on the floor, the notebook open to a page of half-finished dreams. A sketch of a storefront, my name on the sign. I'd shown it to Dad once, nervous but proud. He'd glanced at it, then said, "Focus on the store." M. Dreams don't pay bills. I'd tucked it away, thinking he was right. Now I saw it differently. He'd never believed in me, not like he did in Charlotte's big ideas, the ones he funded without question. My phone rang, startling me. It was Hannah again. You didn't call her, did you?" she said, her voice half teasing, half worried. "No," I admitted, my voice low. "I'm not ready. I keep finding things. Mom's letter, old photos. It's like they never saw me." Hannah sighed. "They saw you, Em. They just didn't value it. You were the one holding everything together." That's not nothing. But it feels like nothing, I said, my throat tight. Charlotte's out there living some fairy tale, and I'm digging through boxes trying to figure out why I wasn't enough. You are enough, Hannah said, fierce now. But you need to face her. Ask why. You deserve that. I nodded, though the fear hadn't left. I'll try. Tomorrow, maybe. I couldn't promise more than that. After we hung up, I looked at the notebook again. My old dreams stared back, fragile but stubborn. I thought of Charlotte's post, her glittering life. Then I thought of Mom's letter, Dad's dismissal, the years I'd given them. The fire in my chest grew hotter, not just hurt now, but something else. Anger. I wasn't ready to call Charlotte yet, but I knew I couldn't stay silent forever. Something had to give, and soon. I woke up with a headache, the kind that feels like a vice around your skull. My notebook of old dreams was still open on the floor, its pages a quiet accusation. I'd promised Hannah I'd confront Charlotte, but the thought made my stomach knot. Instead, I got ready for work, pulling on my faded receptionist blazer. The dental office was slow, all buzzing drills and stale coffee. I smiled at patients' filed charts, but my mind was elsewhere, replaying that gala program, Mom's letter, Charlotte's smug post. By noon, my phone lit up with a text from Charlotte. Dinner at my place tonight. Let's talk. My heart lurched. Her place meant the new house, the one she'd bought with Mom and Dad's money. I stared at the screen, my thumb hovering. Hannah's voice echoed, "You deserve answers." I typed back, "Okay." 7 p.m. and hit send before I could overthink it. Driving to Charlotte's after work, I felt like I was heading into a storm. Her neighborhood was all manicured lawns and iron gates, a far cry from my sagging apartment complex. I parked my rattling sedan next to her sleek convertible, feeling small before I even knocked. The house was massive glass and marble, like something from a magazine. Charlotte opened the door in a silk dress, her hair perfect. "Emily." "Come in," she said, her smile too bright, like she was performing. The dining room was a showpiece, crystal chandelier, long table set with china. It smelled of rosemary and wealth. I sat my thrift store skirt out of place and tried to steady my hands. "Nice place," I said, my voice tight. "Isn't it?" Charlotte beamed, pouring wine. "I've been wanting you to see it. Thought we could catch up, like sisters." I nodded, but her words felt rehearsed. We ate roasted chicken, the kind I could never afford, and she talked about her plans, a yacht, a charity she might start, all vague and dazzling. Every word was a reminder of the 10 million. I pushed my food around, waiting for her to mention the will. She didn't. Finally, I couldn't hold it in. "Charlotte," I said, setting down my fork. "Why did they give you everything? I was there for them. Every day. You weren't." Her smile faltered, but only for a second. She leaned back, swirling her wine. "Oh, Emily, you're so serious. They just wanted me to have a good life, I mean, you're so practical. You don't need all this. Practical." The word hit like a slap. "Practical," I said, my voice rising. "I quit college for Mom. I worked doubles for Dad's store. That's not practical, that's sacrifice." Charlotte sighed like I was a child throwing a tantrum. "Look, Dad told me something before he passed. He said you're strong but too soft. He thought giving me the money would push you to be more ambitious. Like me." I froze, my fork clattering to the plate. Dad said that too soft. The room spun and I gripped the table's edge. All those years holding Mom's hand, balancing Dad's books, thinking I was enough. He'd seen me as weak, a project to be fixed, and he'd told Charlotte, not me. "Ambitious," I choked out. "You partied while I kept them afloat." "How's that ambition?" Charlotte's eyes narrowed, but her voice stayed smooth. "I built connections, Emily. I made things happen. You were just there. Dad wanted you to learn to fight for yourself." Her words were a blade slicing through every memory I'd clung to. I wanted to scream that I'd fought every day for them, for us. But my throat closed, and all I could do was stare at her, her perfect face framed by that glittering chandelier. She didn't get it. She never would. Before I could respond, the doorbell rang. Charlotte excused herself, leaving me alone with my racing thoughts. I heard voices, then footsteps. Our cousin Jacob walked in all slick suit and cologne. "Emily," he said, grinning. "Didn't expect you here." I forced a nod, my chest still tight. Jacob had always been Charlotte's cheerleader, tagging along to her events, praising her hustle. He sat pouring himself wine without asking. "Heard about the will," he said, his tone casual. "Tough break. But you're scrappy, right? You'll figure it out." Scrappy. Another word that stung like I was some stray dog. I wanted to leave, to run from this house and its suffocating wealth, but my feet felt glued to the floor. Charlotte came back, her smile back in place, and the conversation shifted to her latest plans. I barely listened, my mind stuck on Dad's words. Too soft. Was that really what he thought of me? Jacob's grin lingered, but it didn't reach his eyes. I sat there, the weight of Charlotte's words crushing me. Too soft. Dad's judgment burned, and now Jacob was here, sipping her wine, acting like this was normal. The dining room's glow felt mocking, every polished surface reflecting my inadequacy. I wanted to bolt, but my legs wouldn't move. Charlotte slid back into her seat, her laughter light like we hadn't just torn open my heart. "So, Emily," Jacob said, leaning forward. "What's your plan now?" "Gotta hustle, right? No handouts for you." His tone was playful, but it cut deep, like he was testing me. I forced my voice steady. "I've been hustling my whole life, Jacob. You know that." My hands clenched under the table nails, digging into my palms. He shrugged, swirling his glass. "Sure, but not like Charlotte. She's got vision. You're more reliable." "That's not a bad thing, but it doesn't get you a mansion. Reliable." The word was a punch, worse than scrappy. I'd been reliable when Mom was dying, when Dad's store was sinking. I'd been the one they called the one who showed up. And now it was my flaw. My eyes stung, but I blinked hard, refusing to let them see me crack. Charlotte chimed in, her voice smooth as silk. "Jacob's right. You're so good at the steady stuff, Em. But Dad always said I had the spark, you know, the one to carry the family name forward." She reached across the table, handing me a book. Its cover read, "Hustle Harder," in bold red letters, the kind of cheap self-help trash you'd find in a clearance bin. "Thought this might inspire you," she said, her smile sharp. I stared at the book, my pulse hammering. It wasn't a gift. It was a taunt. My sister, sitting in her $1 million house, thought I needed lessons in effort. I pushed it back toward her, my hand trembling. "I don't need this, Charlotte. I've been working harder than you'll ever know." Her smile didn't waver, but her eyes hardened. "Oh, come on. Don't be so sensitive. It's just a book. You're taking this way too personally." "Personally?" My voice shook louder than I meant. "You got $10 million and I got nothing. Dad called me soft, and you're sitting here acting like it's my fault." "How is that not personal?" Jacob raised an eyebrow, leaning back like he was watching a show. "Whoa, Emily, relax. It's just business. Your parents made a choice. You can't change it now. Business. My family's love, my worth, reduced to a transaction." I wanted to scream, to flip the table, to make them feel the weight I was carrying. But all I could do was grip the chair, my breath shallow. Charlotte sipped her wine unbothered, while Jacob checked his phone, already bored. I was unraveling, and they didn't care. I stood my chair, scraping the floor. "I need some air," I muttered, heading for the glass doors to the patio. The night was cool, the city lights distant and cold. I leaned against the railing, my hands shaking so hard I could barely hold myself up. Dad's voice echoed in my head, too soft. Charlotte's book, Jacob's casual dismissal, they were all saying the same thing. I wasn't enough. Not for them, not for anyone. I barely slept after that dinner, Charlotte's words looping in my head like a broken record. Different. Soft. Reliable. They weren't compliments. They were chains. I dragged myself to work the next day, my eyes gritty, my smile fake as I booked dental appointments. When Mr. Larson, the lawyer, called, I almost didn't answer. His voice was clipped professional. "Emily, we need you at the office tomorrow. There's an additional document to review. From your grandfather." My heart skipped. Grandpa's sealed envelope. I'd almost forgotten it. The next morning, I drove to the law firm, my stomach a knot of nerves. The office was the same sterile, all-leather chairs and polished wood. Charlotte was there too, in a tailored blazer, her posture perfect. Jacob slouched beside her, scrolling his phone. Their presence felt like a trap, but I sat anyway, my hands clasped tight. Mr. Larson cleared his throat. "This is a separate bequest from your grandfather Henry. He left explicit instructions." He slid the envelope across the desk, its edges yellowed. My fingers brushed the paper, and for a second I was 10 again, sitting in Grandpa's bookstore, his laugh filling the air as he read me stories. I held my breath as Mr. Larson broke the seal. He pulled out a letter and a legal document, his eyes scanning before he spoke. "Henry bequeaths his property, the bookstore on Maple Street, to Emily, valued at approximately $2 million. The deed is in her name." He paused, then read from the letter in Grandpa's familiar scrawl. "Emily, you were always my pride. Your heart is your strength. This is for you to build your life your way." The room went still. $2 million. The bookstore. Grandpa's voice through that letter wrapped around me like a hug. I saw the store in my mind, its creaky floors, the smell of old pages, the corner where I'd curl up with novels. He'd left it to me. Not Charlotte, not the family. Me. My eyes burned a mix of joy and disbelief. I looked up, expecting silence, maybe respect. Instead, Charlotte laughed, sharp like glass breaking. "That's it," she said, leaning forward. "A dusty old shop. Grandpa must have been out of his mind. That's not fair." I blinked, stunned. "Not fair?" My voice was quiet, but it trembled. "You got 10 million, Charlotte. This is mine." She waved a hand, dismissive. "Oh, please. That store's a money pit. You'll run it into the ground." Grandpa was senile, clearly. He didn't know what he was doing. Her words hit like a fist. Senile Grandpa who'd remembered every birthday, who'd taught me to balance a checkbook, who'd seen me when no one else did. I clutched the letter, my hands shaking. "Don't you dare say that," I said, my voice low but fierce. He knew exactly what he was doing. Jacob snorted, not looking up from his phone. "Come on, Em. Charlotte's right. That place is a relic. You're not a businesswoman. Let it go." I turned to him, my chest tight. "Let it go. This is all I have, Jacob. You don't get to tell me what I'm worth." Mr. Larson raised a hand, his voice calm but firm. "The bequest is legal. The deed is airtight. Emily, the property is yours, unless contested in court." Charlotte's eyes narrowed and she leaned closer, her perfume sharp. "Contested? Oh, we'll see about that. I'm not letting some sentimental old man's mistake screw me over." She stood, grabbing her purse. "This isn't over, Emily." I sat frozen, the letter crumpling in my grip. She was going to fight me for it. For Grandpa's gift, the one thing that felt like love in this mess. My throat closed and I couldn't speak. Jacob followed her out, muttering something about family assets. The door clicked shut, and the silence was deafening. Mr. Larson looked at me, his expression softer now. "Emily, you don't have to decide anything today. Take your time." But his words barely reached me. My mind was spinning, Charlotte's threat echoing. She'd take the bookstore, the one place where I'd felt safe, where Grandpa had believed in me. The thought of losing it, of her greed swallowing even that, made my chest ache like it was caving in. I left Mr. Larson's office in a daze, Grandpa's letter folded in my pocket like a fragile shield. My car felt too small, the air inside stale as I drove toward the bookstore. I needed to see it, to feel its reality under my feet. The street was quiet, lined with old brick shops, and there it was, Maple Street Books, its faded sign peeling but proud. I parked and stepped out, the key Mr. Larson gave me heavy in my hand. The door creaked as I pushed it open, dust swirling in the dim light. Shelves loomed, packed with books Grandpa loved, their spines worn from years of care. I could almost hear his voice reading to me on slow afternoons. This was mine, my future. But Charlotte's threat clung like damp rot. I wandered to the back, where a small office held Grandpa's desk, cluttered with pens and yellowed receipts. A framed photo caught my eye, me at 16, grinning beside him, holding a first edition novel he'd gifted me. My throat tightened. He'd really seen me when my parents hadn't. I sank into his chair, the leather creaking, and unfolded the letter again. There was a second page I hadn't noticed. Grandpa's handwriting was shakier here, but clear. "Emily, they'll try to take this from you. Stand firm. You're stronger than they know." My breath caught. He'd known. Somehow he'd known they'd come for me. My phone buzzed, shattering the quiet. It was a voicemail from Charlotte. I hesitated, my finger hovering, then played it. Her voice was cold, polished. "Emily, I've been thinking. That bookstore's a family asset, not your personal prize. I'm meeting my lawyer tomorrow. You should just sign it over. Save us the trouble." A pause. Then softer, sharper. "You're not cut out for this. You know that." The message ended, and the silence roared. "Sign it over." She wasn't just threatening. She was demanding I surrender the one thing that felt like mine. I stood pacing the cramped office, my heart pounding so hard it hurt. The bookstore's familiar smell, paper and wood, should have calmed me, but it didn't. Charlotte's words were a hammer smashing every fragile hope I'd built. I wasn't cut out for this. She'd spent her life gliding on charm while I'd clawed through every hardship. And now she wanted to strip this away to prove I was nothing. I stepped back into the main room, my shoes echoing on the hardwood. That's when I heard voices outside. Low, urgent. I froze, my pulse spiking. The front window was fogged, but I saw shadows moving. I crept closer, peering through the glass. Charlotte and Jacob stood by her car, their heads bent together. Her voice carried crisp in the night air. "She's ungrateful, Jacob. Always has been. That store should be ours. I'll make sure she folds." Jacob nodded, his laugh low. "She's no match for you, Char. She'll crumble. Always does." He lit a cigarette, the glow catching his smirk. Poor Emily, thinking she's special now. I backed away, my knees weak, and slumped against a shelf. Ungrateful. Crumble. Their words were knives, each one deeper than the last. They weren't just after the bookstore. They were tearing me apart piece by piece. I'd spent years believing I could earn my family's love, that my loyalty mattered. But to them, I was a footnote, a problem to be solved. Charlotte's voicemail. Jacob's laugh. Grandpa's warning, they swirled in my head, a storm I couldn't escape. I slid to the floor, my back against the shelves, the letter still in my hand. The bookstore was supposed to be my salvation, but now it felt like a battlefield. Charlotte's threat wasn't empty. She had money, lawyers, power. And Jacob's betrayal, his casual cruelty, made it worse. They saw me as weak, disposable. My chest ached like all the air had been sucked out of me. I wanted to fight, to scream, but right then all I could feel was the weight of their scorn pressing me into the dark. I sat on the bookstore floor until my legs went numb, Grandpa's letter crumpled in my fist. Charlotte's voicemail and Jacob's sneer echoed, each word a fresh wound. I felt hollow, like their scorn had carved me out. But Grandpa's words, "stand firm," kept flickering a tiny light in the dark. I couldn't let them take this place. Not his gift, not my chance. I stood, my knees shaky, and dusted off my jeans. The bookstore's silence wasn't empty anymore. It was waiting for me. I locked up and drove home, the city's hum distant. My apartment was a mess. Dishes piled in the sink, bills scattered, but I ignored it. I pulled out my laptop, hands trembling, and searched for lawyers. Most websites screamed money with glossy headshots and promises of victory. I needed someone real, someone who'd fight for me, not just a paycheck. After an hour, I found Rachel Carter, a local attorney with a no-nonsense bio and reviews calling her fierce but fair. I emailed her, my heart pounding as I typed out the basics: Charlotte's threat, Grandpa's bequest, the bookstore. I hit send and exhaled, feeling the first stir of something solid inside me. The next morning, I called in sick to work. My boss grumbled, but I didn't care. I needed to see the bookstore again to remind myself why I was doing this. I stopped for coffee first, the shop's warmth a small comfort. As I waited, I overheard two women at a table talking about a friend who'd lost everything in a family dispute. She didn't fight, one said. Just let them walk over her. I gripped my cup, their words a mirror. I wasn't going to be that person. At the bookstore, sunlight streamed through the grimy windows, catching motes of dust. I walked the aisles, trailing my fingers over the books. In the back office, I found something new, a leather-bound journal on Grandpa's desk, tucked under a stack of catalogs. My name was scrawled on the cover in his shaky hand. I opened it, my breath catching. Pages of notes dated over years, all about me. Emily helped a customer find a rare book today, one read. She's got a gift for making people feel seen. Another, she's stronger than she knows, but she doubts herself. I wish she'd see it. My eyes stung. He'd been watching, writing, believing in me all along. I sat at the desk, the journal open, and let the words sink in. Grandpa hadn't just given me a building. He'd given me his faith. Charlotte could call me soft, Jacob could laugh, but Grandpa saw something else. I wasn't ready to lose that. My phone pinged an email from Rachel. I'm interested, she wrote. Can you meet today? Bring the documents. I replied instantly, setting a time. It was real now. I was fighting. Before leaving, I explored more, needing to feel the store's bones. In a storage closet, I found a box of Grandpa's old things, bookmarks. He'd designed a mug with a cheesy quote about stories. Then at the bottom, a small notebook filled with his handwriting. Not a journal, but a list of ideas for the bookstore. Host local authors, one said. Start a kids' reading club. My heart ached, but it wasn't just pain. It was purpose. He'd dreamed of this place thriving, and now it was mine to carry forward. I locked up the key, a weight I was ready to hold. As I drove to Rachel's office, my mind buzzed. Charlotte had money, but I had something else, a reason. The bookstore wasn't just property. It was Grandpa's love, my chance to prove I wasn't what they thought. Rachel's office was in a modest brick building, nothing like Mr. Larson's sleek firm. She greeted me with a firm handshake, her eyes sharp but kind. Tell me everything, she said, leaning forward. So I did. Spilling the will, Charlotte's threats, Jacob's betrayal, Grandpa's letter. My voice shook, but it didn't break. Rachel nodded, jotting notes. This is winnable, Emily. The deed's solid and your grandfather's intent is clear. But it'll be a fight. Charlotte's got resources. She looked at me steady. Are you ready for that? I swallowed, my hands tight in my lap. For the first time in days, I felt a spark of certainty. I'm ready, I said. And I meant it. The diner confrontation with Charlotte left me wired like I'd downed 3 coffees. I'd drawn a line and there was no going back. Days later, I sat in a courtroom, the air thick with polished wood and tension. Rachel was beside me, her suit crisp, her notes stacked. Across the aisle, Charlotte's lawyer, a slick guy in a pinstripe suit, whispered to her. She didn't look at me, her face a mask of cool certainty. Jacob wasn't there, and I was glad. One less pair of eyes judging me. The judge, an older woman with sharp eyes, called the session to order. Rachel presented Grandpa's deed, his letter, his clear intent. The lawyer countered, claiming the bookstore was a family asset undervalued in the estate. My stomach twisted, but Rachel's calm kept me anchored. After what felt like hours, the judge ruled the deed was valid. Charlotte's claim was dismissed. The gavel cracked and I exhaled, my hands unclenching. I'd won. The bookstore was mine. Charlotte stood, her heels clicking as she stormed out, not glancing back. Her lawyer followed, muttering about appeals. Rachel squeezed my arm. You did it, Emily. This is yours now. I nodded, but the victory felt strange, like a weight lifted only to reveal another beneath. I'd fought for Grandpa's gift, but the cost was a family I no longer recognized. Outside, the sky was gray, the air damp with coming rain. I drove to the bookstore, needing its quiet. The shelves, half cleaned from my work with Hannah, stood like old friends. I walked to the counter where I'd left Grandpa's poetry book, its notes still tucked inside. My win should have felt like triumph, but Charlotte's silence gnawed at me. I'd expected rage, maybe a call, but nothing came. It was like she'd erased me. I started sorting books, my hands moving on autopilot, when my phone buzzed. It was a text from Clara, the coffee shop owner. Heard about your win. Congrats. Let's meet soon to plan that reading event. I smiled, small but real. The town was starting to notice, to care. I replied, setting a date, and kept working, stacking novels, dusting corners. The store felt alive, like it was waking up with me. Later I met Zoe, a local artist Clara recommended at the bookstore. She was young with paint-splattered jeans and a quick laugh, her sketchbook bursting with ideas. I see a mural, she said, pacing the front wall. Something warm like a reader under a tree, books all around. For you and your grandpa. I loved it instantly, the image so close to my childhood memories. We shook on it, and she promised to start sketching that week. For the first time, I saw the store not just as mine, but as something bigger, a place for others too. That evening I was locking up when a car pulled up. Jacob stepped out, his usual swagger gone. He looked tired, his tie loose. "Emily," he said, hands in his pockets. "Can we talk?" I stiffened, my key still in the lock. His betrayal at Charlotte's side still stung, but his eyes held something new. Regret, maybe. I nodded, stepping back inside. He followed, glancing at the shelves like he'd never seen them. "I heard about the ruling," he said, his voice low. I'm sorry. I got caught up in Charlotte's world. Her money, her plans. I was jealous, you know. You always had this strength. I didn't. I stared, my throat tight. Jealous of me. The word felt foreign, like it belonged to someone else. "You laughed at me, Jacob," I said, my voice steady but sharp. "You said I'd crumble. Why should I trust you now?" He winced, rubbing his neck. "You shouldn't. I messed up. But seeing you fight, keeping this place, it made me see how wrong I was." He met my eyes, raw, no smirk. I just wanted to say it. I didn't know what to say. His apology was a crack in the wall I'd built, but it didn't erase the hurt. I nodded, my jaw tight, and he left his car, fading into the dusk. I stood alone, the store's quiet wrapping around me. Jacob's words stirred something, but not peace. Charlotte's absence, her silent rage, loomed larger. I'd won the battle, but the war wasn't over. And deep down, I knew she'd strike back. Jacob's taillights vanished, leaving the bookstore bathed in streetlight. His apology hung in the air, jagged and incomplete. I locked the door, my fingers lingering on the cold metal, and turned back to the empty shelves. The victory in court. Zoe's mural plan. Clara's enthusiasm, they should have lifted me. But Charlotte's silence was a shadow, heavy and sharp. I sat at the counter, my hands idle, and felt the weight of what I'd done. I'd fought. I'd won. So why did I feel so hollow? The next morning, I threw myself into the bookstore's revival. I met Clara at her coffee shop, its walls lined with local art. She slid a latte across the counter, her eyes bright. "You're really doing this, Emily." The town's buzzing about the bookstore. We sketched out a reading event, local poets, free coffee, maybe a kid's story hour. Her excitement was infectious, but my smile felt borrowed. Charlotte's absence gnawed, a quiet threat I couldn't shake. Back at the store, Zoe arrived with her sketchbook, her energy a spark against my fog. She spread out drawings of the mural, a girl under a sprawling oak book scattered like leaves. "This is you," she said, pointing to the figure. "Reading, dreaming strong." I nodded, my throat tight. The image was beautiful, but it felt like it belonged to someone braver. We set a date for her to start painting, and I paid her deposit with savings I'd scraped together. It hurt, but it was a choice, a step forward. That afternoon, I was sorting books when my phone lit up with a notification. A local news site had posted about the bookstore's reopening, calling it a community gem reborn. My heart lifted, then sank. Comments flooded in, most kind, but one stood out: waste of a property. Should have been sold. The username was vague, but it reeked of Charlotte. I stared at the screen, my pulse quickening. She wasn't just silent. She was working in the dark, sowing doubt. I shut the phone off, my hands cold, and kept sorting, but the words lingered like damp air. By evening, the bookstore was ready for a soft opening. I'd hung flyers posted online and set up a small table with free bookmarks. A handful of locals showed up, an older couple, a mom with her kid, a teacher named Mark, who loved mysteries. They browsed their chatter soft, their smiles genuine. Mark bought a worn thriller saying, "This place feels like home." I thanked him, my voice steady, but inside I was fraying. Charlotte's comment, her invisible hand pressed against me. As the last guest left, Hannah arrived, her scrubs swapped for jeans. She hugged me fierce and quick. "Look at this, Em. You're making it happen." I nodded, but my eyes drifted to the window, half expecting Charlotte's car outside. Hannah noticed. "She's not here," she said, soft but firm. "Don't let her ruin this." "I'm trying," I said, my voice thinner than I wanted. "But she's out there, Hannah, spreading lies. I saw it online. She wants me to fail." Hannah's jaw tightened. "Let her try. You've got us, this town, this store. She can't touch that." Her words were a lifeline, but they didn't reach deep enough. I locked up the night, cool and still, and drove home. My apartment was dark, the bills still unpaid, but I didn't care. I sat on the couch staring at a blank wall, Charlotte's shadow growing in my mind. Then a knock. I opened the door to find a package, no sender listed. Inside was a single photo, me and Charlotte as kids, maybe 7 and 10 at Grandpa's store. We were laughing, holding books carefree. A sticky note was attached in Charlotte's sharp handwriting. "You're not the only one who remembers." My breath stopped. It wasn't an apology, not even close, but it was something, acknowledgement maybe, or a taunt. I set the photo down, my hands unsteady, and felt the room close in. She wasn't done with me, and I wasn't free. Not yet. The park's quiet stayed with me as I drove back to the bookstore, my notebook tucked beside me. The morning felt new, like the world had slowed just enough for me to breathe. Inside the store smelled of fresh paint from Zoe's mural, now nearly finished. I walked past it, the girl under the tree watching me with steady eyes, and set up for the day. A few customers trickled in, a man buying a cookbook, a woman asking for poetry. Their small talk grounded me, their presence a reminder that this place was alive. By noon, Hannah and Zoe showed up, their laughter filling the shop before they even stepped inside. They'd planned a surprise, they said, dragging me to the back office. A cake sat on Grandpa's desk, simple vanilla with my name and blue icing. "For you," Hannah said, her grin wide. "For keeping this place going." Zoe handed me a card signed by them, Clara, Mark, even Lily from the book club. "You're building something amazing," it read. I blinked hard, my throat tight, and hugged them both. Their belief in me was a warmth I hadn't known I needed. We ate cake crumbs scattering on the desk and talked about the store's future. Zoe suggested a mural unveiling event. Hannah pitched a weekly story hour for kids. Their ideas sparked my own, and for a moment I forgot Charlotte's letter. Jacob's regret, the weight of the past. This was what mattered, people who showed up, who saw me. I thanked them, my voice steady, and promised to plan the event. They left, their chatter fading, and I sat alone, the cake's sweetness lingering on my tongue. Later I drove to the cemetery where Grandpa rested. The grass was overgrown, the stones weathered but solemn. I found his grave, a simple marker with his name and dates. I knelt, brushing dirt from the edges, and pulled out a small book from my bag, a collection of poems he'd loved. I read one aloud, my voice soft against the breeze, about time and memory and carrying on. The words felt like a conversation, like he was listening. I didn't cry, but I felt him there in the rustle of leaves and the weight of the book in my hands. I stood, my knees damp from the grass, and looked at the sky, gray but soft. I'd spent so long chasing my parents' approval, Charlotte's respect, a place in their world. But here, with Grandpa's memory, I didn't need it. I'd built something of my own, not to prove them wrong, but to prove myself right. The thought settled in me, quiet but firm, like a stone smoothed by a river. Back home, I opened my notebook again, the one I'd started in the park. I wrote about the book club, the cake, the cemetery. Not just the moments, but what they meant, that I could hurt and still grow, that I could be enough without their validation. The words came slow, each one a choice to keep going. I closed the notebook, my hands steady, and looked around my apartment. It was still small, still cluttered, but it felt like mine in a way it hadn't before. I walked to the window, the city's lights flickering below. The photo from Charlotte was still on the counter, her note beside it. I picked them up, studying our young faces, the joy we'd lost somewhere along the way. I didn't hate her, not anymore. She was part of my story, but not its center. I set them in a drawer, not to hide, but to let them rest. The night was still, and so was I, my breath, even my heart at ease for the first time in years. The bookstore was quiet that evening, the kind of quiet that feels earned. I stood behind the counter, the register humming softly as I closed out the day's sales. Outside, the streetlights cast a warm glow through the windows, catching the edges of Zoe's mural, now complete. The girl under the tree seemed to watch me, her book open, her face calm. I'd been her once, lost in stories, unaware of the weight the world could bring. Now I was someone else. Someone who'd faced that weight and kept going. I'd started a routine mornings at the store, sorting new inventory, afternoons, meeting with locals like Clara to plan events. Tonight was special, though, a community reading, the first big one since the soft opening. I'd set up a small stage, just a rug and a microphone, and invited anyone to share something they'd written. My own notebook, filled with fragments of my story, sat on the counter. I wasn't sure if I'd read, but the thought didn't scare me like it once would have. People arrived slowly, their footsteps soft on the polished floor. Lily, the shy teenager from the book club, came with her mom, clutching a folded paper. Mark, the teacher, brought a friend, both carrying dog-eared journals. Clara showed up with a tray of pastries, her smile bright as she set them out. By 7, the room was full, chairs mismatched but cozy, the air warm with coffee and anticipation. I dimmed the lights, the mural glowing faintly, and stepped to the microphone. "Thanks for coming," I said, my voice steadier than I expected. "This place means a lot to me. It was my grandpa's, and now it's ours. Share what's in your heart tonight." I stepped back, my hands tingling, and watched as Lily took the stage first. Her poem was raw, about losing her dad young, finding strength in small things. The room listened, silent but alive, and I felt a pang, not pain but recognition. Her story wasn't mine, but it echoed. Others followed. Mark read a short story about a man rebuilding a broken home. A woman shared a letter to her estranged sister. Each voice wove into the next, and I realized something: we were all carrying hurts, all finding ways to mend. I'd spent so long feeling alone in my pain, Mom's favoritism, Dad's dismissal, Charlotte's betrayal. But here in this room, I saw I wasn't. These people, strangers a month ago, were my mirror, showing me I could heal. I decided to read, my hands shaking as I opened my notebook. I chose a page about a quiet moment sitting with Grandpa in his garden, watching bees hum over flowers, learning to be still. My voice wavered at first, but it grew stronger, the words carrying me. When I finished, the room clapped, not loud but warm. Lily hugged me after, her eyes bright. "That was beautiful," she said. I smiled, my chest full, not with pride, but with something softer, connection. After the reading, people lingered, sharing stories over pastries. Clara pulled me aside, her voice low. "You've made a home here, Emily. Not just for you, but for all of us." I nodded, my throat tight. She was right. The bookstore wasn't just mine anymore. It belonged to everyone who walked through its doors. I cleaned up alone, stacking chairs, sweeping crumbs. The silence was gentle now, not heavy. I thought of Charlotte's letter, her grudging acknowledgement. It didn't fix things, but it didn't need to. I'd spent years chasing her shadow, my parents' approval, a place in their story. But here, surrounded by books and voices, I was writing my own. I locked the door, the key light in my hand, and stepped into the cool night, my breath steady, my heart quiet. The next morning, I woke to sunlight filtering through my blinds, soft and unhurried. My apartment felt different, like it had exhaled. I made coffee, the routine grounding, and sat at my small table, at my notebook open. I'd been writing more, not just memories now, but hopes, a literacy program for kids, a shelf for local authors, a space where anyone could feel at home. The bookstore was my anchor, but it was also my wings, pushing me to dream bigger than I ever had. I thought about my parents, not with anger, but with a quiet clarity. Their choice to favor Charlotte wasn't about me. It was about their own fears, their own limits. I'd spent years carrying their judgment, letting it shape me into someone smaller. But standing up for the bookstore, building it into something alive, had shown me I didn't need their validation. I'd forgiven them not because they deserved it, but because I deserved to be free. That freedom was hard-won, carved from nights of doubt and days of work, but it was mine. I drove to the bookstore, the streets familiar, now the town's rhythm part of me. Inside, I found a note slipped under the door, written in a child's wobbly hand. It was from Lily, the teenager from the book club. "Thank you for the reading night," it read. "I drew this for you." Tucked inside was a sketch of the bookstore, its windows glowing, a tiny figure reading under Zoe's mural tree. My heart caught, not with pain but with gratitude. This place wasn't just healing me, it was touching others too. I pinned the drawing above the counter next to Grandpa's old bookmark. It felt right, a small piece of the future beside a piece of the past. I spent the day planning the literacy program, emailing schools, sketching budgets. It wasn't grand, but it was real, free classes for kids who needed books, who needed a place to belong. I thought of myself at their age finding solace in Grandpa's store, and knew this was what he'd want. Not just a legacy, but a gift that kept giving. By evening, I sat outside the store on a bench across the street, watching the lights flicker on. The mural glowed, its colors soft in the dusk. I thought about Charlotte, her letter, her silence since. She'd always be part of my story, but she didn't define it anymore. I'd spent so long measuring myself against her, against my parents' expectations. Now I measured myself by the people who showed up, by the stories we shared, by the life I was building. That was enough. I'd learned something, not in a flash, but slowly, like water shaping stone. Pain doesn't have to break you. It can carve you into something stronger if you let it. I'd been hurt, betrayed, pushed aside, but I'd found my way through, not by winning their love, but by choosing my own. The bookstore, the community, this quiet bench. They were proof I was enough, not because someone said so, but because I decided it. What's a moment that made you realize your own strength? I'd love to hear it in the comments. Your story matters. If this journey resonated with you, maybe hit that like button or subscribe to hear more. Share it with someone who needs a reminder they're enough too. Thank you for listening, for being here. Keep carrying your light, and I'll see you in the next one.